Yes,
Hi.
I'm happy to be here doing this with you, regardless.
Same. I'm so happy to see you, and I was so happy to reconnect. I loved that you came to the Retaility event with Tara.
That was so sweet and so beautiful this summer. And like, what a great group of ladies, like a really nice community you've built.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. That is exactly what I'm trying to build. Like to me, it's about, yes, the storytelling because it always starts there, but it's also
Hmm.
like-minded individuals coming together. So I'm
Yeah.
so thrilled she brought you in the mix. Yeah, I mean, well, let's start actually with Tara. How did you two originally meet, and what is that
I
relationship? Yeah.
I met Tara because I saw David Gentoli out one day and I was like, David, like you look really nice. Like you look very stylish. You've clearly stepped up your game. And he was like, oh, I've had help. And Tara was the one who's been helping him. And then she came and she actually was really helpful. She came and did a big closet clean out with me right before we moved, which was great. I mean, I feel like I needed to do it. I feel like with the pandemic, what was cool and fashionable in 2018 and 2019 was no longer cool and fashionable in 2024, 2025. So it was a good opportunity to have someone else being like, no, like you don't need to keep that in your closet anymore. That's not working for you.
I like to call myself a luxury hoarder because I mean, I probably should do a closet clean, but like clean out, but I feel like clothing sometimes represents an era or a moment in time and it's just so hard to let go. But there is something obviously refreshing about doing that.
Absolutely. And when you're ready to like really purge and let go of stuff, having an outsider's perspective, like an outside set of eyes being like, that's not doing you any favors, is really helpful to have.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So actually, so we're gonna start on a stylish note. I mean, how would you say your style has evolved over the years?
I mean, I feel like when I was younger in my teens and in my 20s, it was a lot more about experimenting. And I think, particularly my 20s and early 20s were just a big period of growth. And, sometimes what feels right in one moment isn't serving you in the next. So I feel like my style has evolved. And, I've been lucky enough to get to try a lot of different things on. But I'm trying to sort of hone in now on what I feel like is specific to me. I think my style tends to be a little bit more timeless and classic and feminine, so figuring that out.
No, and it sounds like we're in very similar stages of life because, I think a lot of people reach that point where you had fun with the trends. Now you want what's going to be timeless and, sort of last you for the years to come, especially when you're trying to consider it from like a more sustainable perspective, I suppose, too. So
Absolutely.
that
And
makes
once you're in that period of your life where you know what you do and don't like I know I like the way purple looks on me, and I know I do not like the way yellow looks on me. So I stopped buying yellow. You know what I mean?
100%. And then also, so now, and also you have two kids, you've entered, the whole world of motherhood. And I feel like for me, that very much also actually impacted my sense of and love of fashion in a weird way too. So I want to talk a little bit about how has your life sort of changed, whether it's practically speaking with fashion or just motherhood in general. How has it changed things?
I mean, you know this as well as I do, but motherhood changes everything. There's not an area of your life that it doesn't impact and have, again, a profound impact on. So I almost feel like at this point in my life, though, I have two separate wardrobes, like the wardrobe I wear around my kids and the wardrobe I don't. We were getting ready to go to an event the other day, and I was wearing a really beautiful silk dress, but you look at silk the wrong way and it's stained or wrinkled or whatever. And one of my kids came up to give me a big hug, and I was like, "Oh, how about you don't hug me, and I'll just hug you." Or
It's
I've also heard that like some moms will put a robe on over what they're wearing. I need to do that. That's smart.
it's true. I don't change until literally the last second out the door because it is hard to explain like, oh, I don't want to get a
I
wrinkle on
know.
my but it is, obviously when you're going out into the world, you have to be aware of those things too.
Absolutely. And my kids, often have messy or sticky fingers and like they're living their best kid lives, but that doesn't always play well with fancy fabrics.
Right, right. No, but also, and your kids and my, I feel like that's just kids. I never knew they'd be so sticky.
Oh, absolutely. That everything would be so sticky. It's just, where did this come from? How did this get here? Like, what is it and how will I get it out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what else? So what surprised you about, motherhood? Like we all know it changes you in every single way, and I hated when people said that. If I'm being honest, because you are still you at the end of the day, but it just opens up your perspective. I don't know. So yeah, I'm curious. What surprised you along the way?
I think a lot of it's very easy to talk about the challenges of motherhood and parenting in general, but there is a certain element of magic to it that's my favorite part. Like it is wildly unpredictable, which was hard for me in the beginning. Like I'm someone who likes order and planning and things, these sort of things, but there is such an element of magic and of just seeing these humans grow and change in front of you and the way they respond to you and go out into the world. Like it's so fun to see.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's like sci-fi. No one tells you that. It really is like having a front row seat to sci-fi, watching a human being form. I
Hmm.
mean, it's fast. Honestly, it's fascinating every way. And without getting into too much, I've had my own journey with all of that.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, I just think it shifts your perspective. And quite frankly, as somebody who was always very career driven,
Mm.
I think it's given my life so much more purpose than any job ever could. And I think that for me was a big shift and a
Yeah.
really important shift. So I don't know if you had that experience yourself at all, but
And impossible to prepare for. Like that's, when people ask what's your advice, it's like, well, your journey is going to be different than mine. Like everyone's journey is so unique. Every person is different. Every child is different. So it's, I don't think I am a good person to give advice. You're just sort of along for the ride. And, one of the few things I do know about parenting is that we're all just doing the best we can.
100%. And something else because you had done like a Q&A on social for Mother's Day. I believe it was
Oh,
Pregnant
yeah.
Mother's Day. Yeah. And something that you talked about that I thought was really beautiful was I think technically the question was like, why are you private? But
Mm.
the idea of I think we're living in a time where it's not just, people who are traditionally forward facing, like we're kind of all forward facing now, and it is such a personal decision, in terms of sharing that imagery or not. And I thought that was a really powerful answer because it's something that honestly within myself I've had to navigate. Like with my daughter, it made sense to share her story for her. There
Mm.
was no other way for her to, I know, I don't have much awareness, but, for me, that made sense. But there was a real shift with my son where I realized, there's so much joy. I mean, you're everything. It's the thing that's worth
Yeah.
sharing. And yet you do need to be aware. And that's why now I actually like only show the back of him. Like it's navigating what feels right. So I was curious, did you think about any of that ahead of time? Or was that something you sort of slowly realized with social media in the picture and how that all works?
I mean, that's such a multifaceted question. Thank you. Also, I feel like it goes back to my initial point that every parent is just doing the best they can. So I don't have judgment about people who choose to share everything or nothing about their children. Like, again, we're all doing the best we can. For me, the genesis probably started not necessarily consciously, but a long time ago because I have a complicated history with social media in general. When I was on a show called The Flash for a long time, and when that show started, and the network and the studio were really pushing us to have a presence online and with social media, it was a very different place. And I was also much younger, and it was a really difficult place. Like it was just a really difficult place to be. And I feel like over the years, I've had to create boundaries in terms of what I do and don't feel comfortable sharing at large with strangers, with anyone to consume in whatever way they choose. And, I've also learned a lot about how things can be misinterpreted and misconstrued on the internet. So, a couple of times in my life, I've had to take big steps back and examine my relationship with social media and try and be really conscious about the boundaries that I want to put up. And, again, as you talked about, like we've made choices to live very sort of forward-facing lives, and I do decide to participate in social media, but that's something that very early on my husband was like, "Oh, this is not for me." And, we did have a conversation about it and, pretty quickly realized we were on the same page just in terms of there wasn't much we wanted to share. I think I said this in my Q&A, but I think that it should be my kids' decision what their presence online looks like. That's just my personal opinion. And when they are adults, they can make those decisions. And hopefully by that point in time, I've tried to teach them to be aware of the internet and what it looks like and the consequences of being on it, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be their decision whenever they're ready, and it's not my decision to make for them.
Beautiful. No, I'm with you on that. I mean, my sister said her neighborhood, they're in Chicago, like a suburb, and they have a pact that the whole neighborhood, they're not getting phones until whatever age. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing so that nobody feels left out. But it is
Yeah.
a different time
And
with
I
all.
think it also is so nice when a community can come together and again with shared values. I'm sure there's other ones, but there's one I've heard of called Wait Till Eighth. And like that's a pledge that a lot of parents come together and we say, we're going to make this decision that, we're going to wait until eighth grade to give our kids a phone or whatever that looks like. And I think it can be really powerful and helpful when a community comes together. However, I understand that that's not doable. It's not
Right.
feasible for all families. Like, you
Absolutely.
know,
Right.
you might need something else just because of your family dynamic, whatever that looks like.
100%. No, absolutely. And then wait, so Room to Read, I know you're an
Mhm.
ambassador for, and then did you volunteer for years with them as well? Tell me a little bit about your relationship with them.
I only recently started working with Room to Read, and it was a very organic connection. And, when I got in trouble as a kid, it was definitely for like reading under the covers with a flashlight. I've always been, a reader, a lover of books, a lover of stories, and that was the initial connection was that I am so passionate about that. And I'm also really passionate about working with kids. And because, I do think this next generation is shaping the future every single day. And the workroom to read is really incredible. They work hand in hand with local governments and local communities, again, to go into the community and help and support girls and young children all the way through teenagers in whatever way they're going to receive the best. So, sometimes when they're teenagers, it's about things like how to balance a checkbook and manage money and things like that. Or when they're younger, I love that Room to Read has created these books that are specific to each community so that, when the child reads the book, it's a story and a framework and a setting that feels familiar to them and not, something that they don't understand and can't relate to. And I think the lessons are learned so much deeper because of the really intelligent way they do their work.
Beautiful. And then I don't want to backtrack too much, but I also think it's just interesting. I mean, what do you remember? Because you moved to Los Angeles. You're not from here,
Mhm.
correct?
I'm not originally from LA, no.
So what do you remember about that time, and in what way that did that sort of, because you grew up in the industry, I'm pretty like I feel like you worked really regularly, and I looked up your credits and was like blown away because I you've been working a long time. So I was curious, what do you remember about, yeah, when you first moved here? I mean, how old were you?
I remember a lot. I was a
Okay.
teenager. So
Okay. Got it.
I have a younger sister who was an actress as well, and she was a little bit younger, but I was 14 or 15 by the time we really started pursuing it. So I remember a lot. We were actually living in Chicago at the time, and you know, this is a little bit more of an antiquated term now, but there used to be pilot season. And so someone said you fly out to LA for pilot season. And my sister and I both came out for a pilot season and we both did pilots. The pilot I did didn't end up going to series, but shortly thereafter I got a mini series called Empire Falls. And as you said, I've been very lucky and I've worked pretty consistently for the last 20 years. And so it wasn't initially meant to be a permanent move to Los Angeles. It was like, well, let's just dip our toe in and go for a pilot season and see what happens. And then my sister and I ended up working consistently enough that it made sense for our whole family to move out here.
Wow. Okay. See, I didn't appreciate that piece of the puzzle. I mean, I did assume it would have been maybe acting oriented just because you've been doing it for
Hmm.
so long. But you never know too if, someone relocates for a job
Yeah.
and then you're here and it's like, well, this is what they export. So, no,
Yeah,
that's
my
really
dad was in
interesting.
sales, and so we did move every 2 years growing up. So I have moved around a fair bit. But ultimately the move to LA was for my career and my sister's career.
Got it. Have you ever contemplated anything else? Or what is it that you love about what you do?
It's funny. I mean, well, two-part question. Have I ever contemplated anything else? My dad's a chemical engineer, and when I said I wanted to go to college to be an English major, he was like, "Well, what do you do with an English degree?" Like it just didn't make sense to him. And so, no, not really. Did I ever contemplate anything else? Again, English major, like it always comes back to stories for me and telling great stories. Um, and what do I love about my job? I get to play make believe for a living. Like it's pretty great, and it's a lot of fun just to go and to play and to get to create in that way.
So speaking of that, second guessing fate.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the project and what you loved most about working on it.
So Second Guessing Fate, it is a more modern take on a romantic comedy. It was something nice and refreshing and light to get to do. We had a lot of fun making it, and it's about a young woman, Gemma, who's been on 100 dates and just can't find her person. And so it sort of comes in that moment where she's like, "That's it. I give up. I quit. Like I tried to make this work. I can't do it anymore." And then, of course, as often happens when you stop trying so hard to make something happen, things show up at your doorstep. And it's sort of a question of, does she believe in fate, as these two really charming handsome men enter her life. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. We made it in Edmonton, Canada. I'd never worked there before, so but a really fun crew, and very scrappy. Like the business has changed, and we're trying to make the money, you're trying to make the movie efficiently, if you will. So everyone's ability to come together and really work hard and as fast as they can was useful.
Everything's like an indie film now. I feel like, everything's just operating in a very, very different way than it once did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what have you learned about yourself over the last year?
Ooh, what have I learned about myself over the last year? I think as a mom, I'm constantly learning patience and, just trying to step back and let my kids show me who they are and try not to get in the way as they grow. So, you know, this our business is also changing dramatically, and it's just a good experience of just trying to let go and embrace the change and not fight against it.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully put. Yeah, I feel like everyone has different moments in life where you are reminded that we're not actually in control.
Yes.
And it's an important lesson, it's such an important lesson that if you can actually learn it, if you can actually commit it to
Yes.
memory, it serves you along the way. I mean, even something as simple as, trying to be present. I thought, oh, I learned like I had my moment. I learned the lesson of how to be present. I was truly present for a period of time. I've got it. And you're constantly working at it. So I think,
I know.
letting go, all of that is just a constant work in progress.
Absolutely. And moment to moment, it changes.
Absolutely. And then just lastly, I was going to say, I mean, what do you still hope to accomplish personally and professionally? Like, what season of life would you say that you're in right now?
I mean, my kids, they're 3 and 5, but they're starting to get bigger, and I can see the moment where I don't have to be as present in their lives as I am currently. So I'm excited for that next chapter, hopefully to get back to work. My dream is to get back to work on something I'm really excited about doing, something that is challenging and allows me to stretch. I directed a few episodes of The Flash, which was great, and I would love to direct again. And again, you know, really expand my creative abilities in that way.
Wow, actually, now that you've mentioned that, I'm realizing like the Flash had to have been a turning point for you in a handful of ways, even right down to directing. I mean, yeah, did you know when you were working on it that it was such a big moment in life you're actually you described to me? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I mean, what did that moment represent for you?
I mean, as I think we were just talking about, like every moment is different. I just sort of would try to take it one season at a time. And, there were some seasons that were more challenging than others. And then those are like, okay, I just have to do this one episode at a time. And then some days it's like one day at a time, one moment at a time, like just get through this. And hopefully grow and learn from that experience. So, no, I don't think in the moment I had any idea the impact it would have. I never imagined we would go for 9 seasons. I never imagined there would be a global pandemic. I never imagined, like, there's just so many things that I didn't anticipate.
Right. Gosh. And because I've admittedly been in my own little bubble, I don't think I realized there was overlap with any of that or, wow, okay. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. And you're right, from season to season, you never know if the next one's coming. And I always forget that piece of it
Mhm.
too, just because I'm not on that end of things. But yeah.
Yeah, you never know if the next season's coming. You never know if you're going to be a part of it. The creative vision for what you're part of it can change.
Hmm. That makes sense. Well, then it sounds like you're an expert in pivoting and, I
I'm
forget.
still learning, 10 years later, still learning.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, unless there's anything else you would want to cover, I feel like this was great.
No, this is great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. But as you set out a bunch of dates and it's like lining up the schedule exactly.
Honestly, I'm so impressed that you followed through. Like, we made this happen. I feel like it's kind of like when you set a coffee date or you're going to go on a hike with somebody. It's like,
I
well, we'll hold
know.
our breath and see what happens. So,
Especially in this moment in life where I have 2 kids in 2 different schools, I feel like someone's always bringing home some sort of virus. Like, I never know
totally.
what to expect.
No, and then also to credit you, the fact that you followed up on Sunday and you're like, hey, is this still happening? And it was
I know,
in
but
my
that's my
calendar.
Virgo control. Like, okay, what does my week look like?
No, I love it. If honestly, if this wasn't, it was such a busy week with so many unexpected things to your
Mhm.
point that on my list was to reach out to you first. So thank you for
It
reaching
was on my calendar. We made it happen.
out. Well, yay, nice to see you, and I
So
hope
nice to
to
see you. Thank you
soon.
so much.
All right. I guess bye.
Bye.